everybody, to today's CERS Finance Committee, excuse me, on May 18th, 2026. First, can Mr. Bronco give us a legal public statement, please?
Of course. This is a regular meeting of the County Employees Retirement System Board of Trustees Finance Committee. This meeting is being broadcast via video teleconference pursuant to KRS 61826 and may be viewed by the public at the Kentucky Public Pensions Authority offices located at 1260 Louisville Road in Frankfort, Kentucky. It is also being broadcast to the public live via Facebook. If you're speaking and not appearing by video, please identify yourself before talking. If the video or audio broadcast is interrupted, we will attempt to reestablish a connection. If a connection cannot be reestablished within 30 minutes, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled to a later date.
Thank you. Ms. Rankin, can you do a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. O'Mara?
Here.
Dr. Carver?
Here.
Mr. Cheatham?
Here.
Mr. Fulkerson?
Here.
And Mr. Webb?
Here.
Thank you.
And Ms. Rankin, is there any public comment for today?
No, sir, no public comment today.
All right, so approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting held on February 16th, 2026?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Thank you. First and second. Any discussion, additions, corrections? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That passes. Next on the agenda is the 27 hybrid percentage allocation. Mr. Lamb, would you walk us through that, please?
Yes, so this is the allocation specific to the CERS system allocating their portion of the hybrid percentage to the two plans, the non-hazardous plan and the hazardous plan. And so, the ad hoc committee met a little bit in the fall and then in the spring, and then we brought the hybrid percentage recommendation to the KPPA board during their March 19th meeting, and they approved the hybrid percentage for CERS being 64.38 and KRS being 35.62. That's effective July 1. And then as part of that, as we've done in the past, we let each system then decide how to allocate that among their own plans. And it's been done on membership. And so that 64.38 for CERS is being recommended to be allocated to the non-hazardous at 59.17% and the hazardous at 5.21%.
Okay, we've done it on membership in the past. Any discussion about that process or an alternate to be discussed? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the FY 2027 allocation of the CERS hybrid percentage between the CERS non-hazardous duty member fund and the CERS hazardous duty member fund as presented by Mr. Lamb?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
First and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. That passes. Next on our agenda is Mr. Lamb again with quarterly financial reports.
Thanks. Near the bottom of page 8, the total fiduciary net position for the CERS system at the end of March is $20.9 billion. That's 9.86% or $1.8 billion up or more than the $19.03 billion from the prior March. The two pension plans total $15 billion and increased 10.36%. The two insurance plans total $5.9 billion and increased 8.6%. As usual, there are various notes and changes on the right side of that financial statement that show changes plus or minus 10% and $1 million. And just for example, note 4 addresses the change in real return, and the comment for that is unrealized gains. In the middle of this same page, the total investments at fair value have increased overall by 10.75%, or nearly $2 billion. The pension plans are up 11.66%, and the insurance plans are up 8.51%. The largest increase in value is with public equities, which is up 15.27%, or $1.3 billion across all plans, followed by real return up $375 million, and specialty credit up $264 million. If we go down to page 9, near the bottom on the right-hand side, we can see $439 million, which represents, let me just make sure it's there. Yep. Oops, sorry. Which represents the change, in this case, an increase in the fiduciary net position through the third quarter of this fiscal year. In the same period in the prior fiscal year, there was an increase of $565 million. So far this year, that's a 33.49% higher amount, or $189 million more. The two pension plans show $388 million and a $189 million increase respectively. And the prior year's increase was only $458 million. Those two combined was $578 through the third quarter. The two insurance plans show $145 million and $31 million respectively, for a total of $176. And that is $69 million, or 65% higher than the prior year amount of $107 million. So overall, this higher amount for all plans of $189 million between the current year and the prior year is driven by overall net investment income being 21.13% higher, or $189 million more. So basically, the entire change is accounted for in the net investment income. The admin expenses and whatnot went up $24 million, and contributions also increased by $24 million, so offsetting each other. So that entire change is related to net investment income. And we can see that a little bit more on page 10 as we get into the contribution reports. And so through the third quarter of fiscal year 26, both the CERS pension plans received $904.5 million in member and employer contributions. So that's the total number of both plans and all of the line items there up in the additions except for investments. And that's $21.1 million more than what was received during or through quarter 3 of fiscal year 25. Member contributions themselves were up $11.6 million. Employer contributions were down by $0.3 million, and the employer pay credit was up $9.8 million. The pension employer contribution rates for CERS non-hazardous decreased from 19.71% to 18. That doesn't sound right. Well, it's decreased, and it also decreased for the hazardous as well. But the salaries through Q3 were $126 million higher. With, again, my numbers for participants are really rough, but it shows the report that we used showed about 3,700 more participants for C non-hazardous, and total salary being $45 million for the hazardous, with approximately 12 less participants. These increased salaries and changes to headcount have led to the increased employer pay credit, and really didn't have an effect on the employer contributions, as those went down $0.3 million. So the increase in salaries has led to the higher member contributions as well. The net investment income for the two pension plans was $250.4 million. That's 182.7 and 67.7. And that is $21.4 million, or 9.34% higher than the prior year amount of $229 million. Both pension plans paid out $1.1 billion in benefits, refunds, and admin expenses versus $1.07 billion during the prior third quarter. And that's $36.3 million more, or 3.38% higher. All of this shows that the light yellow net contribution line, the CERS non-hazardous plan had a negative net contribution of $6.2 million, and the CERS hazardous pension plan had a positive net contribution of $50.3 million. However, when we do remove the net investment income of 182.7 million and 67.7 million respectively from both plans, the non-hazardous plan has negative 188.9 million in cash flow, while the hazardous plan has negative 17.4 million in cash flow through the third quarter. The next page is the insurance plans. And we just start with this plan right with the light yellow net contribution line. The non-hazardous insurance plan has positive net contribution of 6.1, and the CRS hazardous insurance plan has a negative 36.1 million. The net contribution amount through Q3 of fiscal year 26, if we remove the net investment income of 65.9 million and 29.6 million respectively, the bottom chart shows cash flow or net contributions at negative 59.8 million and negative 65.7 million. I do need to remind us that in the second quarter of the fiscal year, the CRS non-hazardous plan received a $29 million reciprocity payment from the teachers' retirement system, and that's why that swing from year to year is a little bit unusual. And that's the financial reports. Before I move on to the other part, any questions on those?
Go ahead,
Hearing
Mike.
none? Okay. The past due invoices are next. So the total amount that was past due at March 31 was just over $3.8 million. While the quarter prior to that, 12/31, the past due amount was just over 3.1 million. So that's changed quite a bit from December to March. And here's a few reasons why. There are 173 more invoices and $750,000 more past due as follows. So the Metcalf Healthcare Center, they have 102 total invoices between December and March in the past due bucket, and that's totaling 450,000. We did issue 256 invoices totaling nearly $900,000 in December, and they were due in January, and that's why they weren't past due in December. As of May 15th, so just as of Friday, their total past due balance is only $193,000 with only 33 outstanding invoices. And they're still actively working through those invoices, and they're all going to be resolved by June 30th as per the cessation agreement with them. Anderson County Fiscal Court has 15 more invoices since December, and that's 226,000 more, and that's due to the completion of the ERSA review over the Anderson County Fiscal Report. I did check their balance as of 5/15 on Friday, and they have 26 invoices still past due with a $569,000 balance. Pulaski County Fiscal Court had 5 invoices this quarter totaling 22,000, and as of Friday, they were all still open. And Webster County Board of Education had 11 invoices in the past due bucket at March totaling 12,000, and as of Friday, they have all been paid. So that accounts for the swing from December to March. 3 of the top 10 past due employers by dollar amount are currently being worked on by either KPPA or CERS legal counsel, and their past due totals $2.3 million among those 3. And then as of Friday, all of those past due items that are on this list here, there was approximately $600,000 that has since been paid since March 31. And so the chart on the second page just kind of shows the trend line of this. So it's March 31 was a bit higher than it's been in a while. There's been significant progress made on items since March 31, and we continue to work on the legal items that make up the bulk of that balance. The next page shows the penalty invoices that occurred for the quarter, and there were 7 that were waived or canceled, totaling $7,000. 6 were created, totaling $6,000, and 47 were actually paid during the quarter, totaling $48,347. And I believe that's the AR portion of this presentation. Happy for questions.
Mike,
Yes, sir.
just, I'm looking at the list of the outstanding. I don't see some communities on there that I don't see Jackson County. Or excuse me, I'm sorry. I don't see, is it Anderson I don't see on? There it is. And then City of Carlisle, Clay County.
The city, sorry, Mr. Cheatham.
I'm sorry.
The city of Carlisle, we just built those, so they wouldn't have shown up on this report.
Well, and I bring them up for a little bit different question because you alluded to it a minute ago, Mike, in that you had some bills that went out in December, I guess it was, that didn't show up on the last report.
Yeah, so this report is a past due report as of a certain date. It's not a total open invoice report.
I understand. My question, though, is, a lot of these that we're concerned about go back significant periods of time. Could you explain to us what your policy is as far as determining what is considered a past due and what is not?
Yeah, so in general, obviously some of those reviews and when we find some omitted billings that occurred several years ago in some instances, we notify the employer and then we invoice them and then we allow them 30 days typically to pay that. There's one exception, I think, of pension spiking, they're allowed a year to pay. But most other invoices, they have a 30-day payment term on that, even though it may be related to 2015 or in some cases 2011 or 2023. Obviously, those contributions were due back then, but the employer, we hadn't
didn't know about it.
Yeah, for whatever reason. So we give them notice and we give them 30 days to pay. And once they don't pay, it becomes past due. As this report's only generated quarterly, before I started, this report was open invoices and my accounting team spent a lot of time. They didn't generate the report until really close to the board meetings. And so they were waiting for the past due payments to come in. Typically employers pay by the 10th of the month. And so they were trying to give the employers the benefit of the doubt so they don't show up on a past due report. But I wanted a static dollar amount. And this was discussed, I think, through kind of the employer invoicing committee that we put together, or a project team, mostly with KPPA people. But now we have a static number that who's past due on a continual basis at the end of every quarter. They may pay those bills 10 days late but that is an issue. We want them to pay on time. So this method kind of gives us that static thing, but you're right. Carlisle and Clay County, Jackson County, they may have just got some invoices issued to them that relate to several years back for sure. They're not on here because they're not technically late yet because we give them 30 days to pay them.
Okay. I guess my trying to think the best way to frame this.
I can do, there's methods. This just shows I can add a column for current. It would show all open invoices instead of starting at 60 days late. I could show a current balance, and that would also give you, and I can focus on some of the. Again, these are the top 10 employers, so I don't know what Carlisle ended up at. If they're in the top 10, we can expand it to 20, and we can put comments related to them.
I think what would be helpful, and not something that you would need to go over every time the committee meets or anything like that, but I think it would be helpful in the short term anyway to get a list of every entity that has a past due balance. Does that make sense?
That's provided at least every quarter to the CEOs. It's the full comprehensive report of every open invoice. We started that last year.
Mm-hmm.
We've met on it a couple times. That hasn't always occurred, but I'm always willing to meet, but that is provided. And it's, it's a comprehensive list. It's not just the top 10. It's all of them. It's all past due balances. It's all current balances. It's got my comments. It's got Ursi's comments. It's got legal's comments on every employer that's available for discussion with.
And you
CEO.
provide that to Ed how often? Monthly or
Every-
quarterly or what?
Every quarter. I
Okay.
can also do it monthly. Dewan and I review it monthly, but then I put it together for the CEOs on a quarterly basis in preparation for the upcoming board meetings.
Okay. Ed, whenever you get that, I'd like to share that with, well, I think the finance committee in general needs to see it as well.
Yeah, I certainly will do that, Lyle. It's been a couple of quarters, Mike, since we've had those meetings.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they've been hit or miss, but the data is available and I can be more consistent in providing it more timely to Ed. I think the quarter before this one, I didn't get it to him very timely. This last quarter, I think it was a little bit earlier than last time, but with many things going on, sometimes it's tough to find time to meet and discuss also.
Yeah. Well, Ed, if you don't mind, just, provide that at least, to whoever wants to see it. But I would think the finance committee and Steve, I would think your committee would probably want to see that as well.
I will certainly do that.
Absolutely. Okay.
Any other comments on this item?
Can I maybe ask one question? I think for Mr. Lamb, right, you're running a query in your system that's based on the invoice date. Is there a way to flag some of these other things that have been discovered overdue but aren't there yet? That's not an enormous lift for you and your team?
That's part of that. What I try to do monthly with Dewan and then quarterly with the CEOs. I look at, what employers are new, which ones are like have new balances past due, for example, and that may not hit the top 10. So yeah, we try to account for them. And the intent of Dewan and I looking at those monthly is to get ahead of something that caught us by surprise, right? His team really knows the details of that, but again, we're dealing with 1,200 employers here, and we may overlook one that's creeping up on us. But we also know if we've done a review on them or there's been some significant issue that the benefits team is rebilling omitted or something, they're aware of that too, but it's not my intent of reviewing employer to employer is to catch those. So yes, Steve, it's built into our new process to try to identify them prior to, they becoming 90 days past due or this, that, and the other.
Thanks, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mike. We'll come back to you in a minute.
I'll be waiting.
All right. All right. Next, Mr. Surratt, can you take us through hazardous duty request?
Yes, I can. So today we have 17 positions being requested for hazardous duty coverage. All the positions today are police or paramedic positions. KPPA staff has reviewed the position questionnaires and the job descriptions, and they do meet the statutory guidelines for hazardous duty coverage. Just so you know, Anderson County Fiscal Court is requesting 2 retro dates for their positions as ERC completed a compliance review and found that the agency was misreporting some members in incorrect hazardous positions. So that's why they're requesting those retro dates. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, I ask the Finance Committee to approve these to go forth in front of the CERS Board of Trustees for final approval.
I have a question just about those retro dates. How far, I mean, that's back to 5 years ago. Have we had any ones that are older than that come forward in the past?
At times, if we're doing a review, yes, we found them that they're reporting them, let's just say, as a police officer, but uh, they changed it to a police sergeant, and the sergeant was not approved, but they were still reporting that person as a police officer. So we're still receiving the contributions, but they're not reporting them in the correct position. So that police sergeant position will have to be approved by the board first. But yes,
But
we have.
okay, but you are collecting the money. That's what.
Yes, we're still
Okay.
getting hazardous contributions. If
Okay.
not, we definitely will bill. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Go on, just kind of follow up on that question from Dr. Carver. And I'm going back to our conversation we had the other day. It's not just issues of the positions being misaligned. There's been issues that have come up where people were supposed to be less than 100-hour part-timers, and turns out they're not. Can you kind of touch on that briefly for everybody else? Because I know that was one of the issues, if I understand it correctly, that came up on the Metcalfe County healthcare. And I think that one went back to what, 2013 or 14 or something?
Yeah. So with that, especially like we were doing reviews for a couple agencies, compliance reviews on a couple agencies, in our system, sometimes members will start working more hours, and they would eventually start averaging 100 hours per month. Well, if the agency is still reporting them as non-participating, as part-time, they weren't being billed for those contributions. So as we're doing these compliance reviews, we are going back and billing for those omitted contributions not received. As I stated before, um, as we're doing these reviews, we are finding past cases of these instances, but in the future, will be turning on something in our system that will average these employees on a fiscal year basis. So, we won't take so long to catch these cases. They will automatically be billed at the end of the fiscal year.
Mr. Cheatham, may I add something for
Yes, ma'am.
clarification?
Sure.
I just wanted to say, the Metcalfe Healthcare Center, it's slightly different than the hazardous duty positions that we were talking about. Those were, it didn't have, they don't have anything to do with the hazardous duty. It's just that there were employees that they considered part-time that actually averaged 100 or more hours that are required to be full-time for retirement purposes.
Yeah, and that was the point I guess I was trying to make based on Dr. Carver's question, that we're not just running into issues where positions are misaligned, but we're running into situations where people are just misreported, based on part-time versus full-time, for lack of a better way to put it.
Any other questions for Luan? Okay, is there a motion to approve the hazardous duty coverage request as presented?
So moved.
Thank
I'll
you. A
second.
second? Was that a second, Lyle?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Having first and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That passes. Thank you, Dwan.
Thank you.
And Mike, welcome back. Talk about the 2027 administrative budget.
Yeah, so this is the quarterly admin budget, budget actual for the ending March 31. I'm just going to read through these notes a little bit. So KPPA spent 73.25% of the personnel category and has 26.75% or 10 million to spend in Q4. Year-to-date spending is 5.66% higher than prior year. There are certain individual line items in this subcategory that we continue to closely monitor. Salary, wages plus locality premium are budgeted together, but they're tracked separately, and combined, KPPA has spent 73.6% of the annual budget, with the expected totals to be right at or slightly below the $22.4 million budget of those two line items. Employer paid FICA and employer paid retirement are both expected to end up below budget by $150,000 and $240,000 respectively. However, our employer paid health insurance line item is likely to exceed budget by about $315,000. So the under in the FICA and the retirement kind of saves us a little bit on the health insurance. The rate significantly increased, like 15%, and we didn't budget quite that high. All other line items are expected to be under budget in this category at year end, and overall, this subcategory is on target to be at or slightly below budget by 2 to 3% at year end. In the legal contracts, there's plenty of capacity in every individual line item within this category, and it is anticipated that this will end up $1 million under budget. The auditing line item will remain under budget for the year. Actuarial costs are 8.99% higher than the prior year. However, this category is below budget and shall remain so. Medical reviewers' costs are 4.99% higher than prior year at this time. However, this category is also below budget and should remain so. The other personnel category is under budget through Q3. The IT assessment that's ongoing is in here, and that was just recently initiated. But we anticipate that this will remain under budget for the year as well. The operational total is trending below budget with most line items on target. However, there are a few individual items to note. Conference expenses, this line item only has 25% of its budget remaining, but it does include the costs related to the October Impact Forum, as well as other conference costs, and it should remain under budget at year end. Dues and subscriptions appear to be over budget through Q3. However, most of the annual subscriptions have already been paid. So I was looking at last quarter, how much we paid in dues and subscriptions. We spent $12,000 in that last quarter. And if that's added to this, we should still be under budget. The carpool line item is likely to exceed budget by $1,000 by year end. And as noted in the past quarters, I missed the state risk amount, and that's going to be over budget. And all individual line items in the budget are on target to be below at year end. And so overall, we've spent 66.68% or $33.5 million of the fiscal year budget, which was $50 million, and current spend is 1.88% higher than the same period last fiscal year. This left KPPA with $16 million to utilize in the fourth quarter of the fiscal year, which we probably will not spend all of that. The hybrid allocation at the bottom shows how this $33.5 million has been allocated thus far to each retirement plan. And then the JP Morgan interest is earned on the next page. That shows that one.
Any questions on the 2026 administrative budget to actual? Okay, that's informational. Do you want to walk into the 2027 admin budget?
Sure. Let me just pull that up so I can speak to it. So this is very draft, and this has actually changed since I've submitted it to board books, but as you participated last year, the budget ad hoc committee helped us prepare the biennium budget request. And so the biennium budget request was $50.8 million. And we sent that in to the legislatures, et cetera. And House Bill 500 was issued at the end of the legislative session. And House Bill 500 gave us actually $1 million less than we asked for. And I wanted to point out, when we were preparing the biennium budget request, there's certain parameters we have to abide by, including there's some baseline amounts that we can't exceed, this, that, and the other. And when we did our budget, we felt like we needed $1 million more than we asked for. But we thought we could manage that through just managing our personnel costs a little bit. And then we got $1 million less than we asked for. So we were a little bit short in total of what we think our budget would have been. Now, again, that was all prepared back in October, trying to project what we're going to need starting July 1. And so now our budget amount is here. We can't exceed that budget amount of 49.8 million. And so in yellow is my, at the time, best calculation of the proposed budget. And it kind of shows that we were about $2.9 million short. However, since that time, I've had further discussions with various divisions and departments, and I've already made some adjustments. And so currently my amount over the 49.8 million sits at 1.5 million higher than that. And so that's it's pretty close to what we thought, what we didn't ask for. Like we asked for $1 million less than we needed in the biennium budget, and now we're 1.5 away from that. I still got a few calculations to do to determine that, so I think we're still going to end up somewhere in the 1 to 1.5 range of what we need. That total amount is really about a 3 to 4% of the personnel costs, and this personnel cost up here is so we have 284 cap positions, and we are actively recruiting or have filled 281 of those positions. So there's really only 3 positions yet to establish, and we've, as an executive team, have discussed what those need to be. Some of them are part of the ABR, or the additional budget requests that we asked for and got granted, and that number's in the 49.8 million. So in reality, we're budgeting for all 284 positions. I do, as been worked on with the budget committee in the past, take into consideration our turnover ratio. And so that's built into this formula, as well as the 2% salary increase that's going to state employees on July 1, as well as the estimated salaries for those positions that are vacant that we're actively recruiting for, as well as what we think will pay the 3 positions that we haven't started actively recruiting for. All of that said is, I'm still $1.5 million short, but we can manage that. That's a 3 to 4% of that $41 million up there, and we can manage that through some turnover, maybe delaying the rehire of someone who leaves. We've also been notified, and I haven't been able to crunch these numbers yet, there's several retirements happening on August 1 in this organization, and that will probably increase the turnover amount. And some of those are longevity people that may have higher salaries than what we replace them with. And so just as executives, we've talked about being able to manage that personnel salary by 3%. So I tell all you that just to kind of let you know that the budget's tight, but we feel like we can manage to the amount that's been granted to us through the House Bill 500. Questions?
So just to be clear, our budget is actually 49,800.
Correct.
Okay. And our budget for 2026 was 44.7.
No, our budget for 2026 was 50.1 million. My projected actual is 44 million.
Okay, that's sorry. Yes, I misspoke. So, you've got approximately $5 million there between your projected actual and what House Bill 500 is. Where does that addition, where's that $5 million? I understand payroll and that, but that can't account for all of it.
I think,
So,
Mike,
go ahead.
you may want to touch on the I don't know what the proper term is in state, but there was review of positions, and you were told certain people got increases, and that would be over and above any kind of across the board increase, the 2%.
Yes. So part of that increase to our proposed fiscal year 27 budget amount takes into consideration all of the additional compensation that's been provided to various positions related to the personnel cabinet's review. We were told by the budget office that we were given a little bit of money last fourth quarter. We were given like $149,000 to help compensate for that. And they said that in this House Bill 500, they took into consideration those positions and granted us money in that $49.8 million. However, my calculation shows that some of these increases have cost us nearly $500,000, and we have gotten nowhere near $500,000 in additional funding through the budget process. So it's hard for me to accept that explanation at this point. So I think a lot of that $5 million is related to those positions. Sure. I mean, it's not all, but that's just salary, not necessarily the FICA that goes with it or the retirement contribution that goes along with those salaries, et cetera.
I understand. I guess what if the 44.7 was your projected actual, and I understand the changes in the payroll, I think that was mostly within the technology positions. Is that correct?
Yes.
Or that's what instigated it. Let's put it that way. That I guess I'd be really interested in knowing where that $5 million additional, projected expense, where that falls out. I can see looking at this that your informational technology budget's up about $1 million. So there's $1 million knocked off that. I assume that is mainly to do with the contract for upgrades and revisions, but where's I don't see anything on here, that shows me that much more.
So again, my projected actual is just what I think we're going to come in at June 30 in the budget to actual. And so if we're just comparing the 26 budget to the 26 actual, we can look at the line items like the legal contracts. We budgeted 1.8. I think we're going to come in at 750,000. That's a $1.2 million swing just between budget and actual. But none of that has to do with fiscal year 27 budget.
Well, I understand that.
Okay.
For planning perspective, for budgeting perspective, to me, I'm going to rely on your projected actual numbers more so than your 2026 budget. Just because we budget it and didn't spend it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Again, I'm sitting here looking at your personnel expense. You're projecting, you're going to be at 37 million. Your budget was, almost 39 anyway. And the House bill number is 38. It looks like they pretty well held that number in line, but we didn't spend $2 million of it. So, see, I'm just more concerned with seeing your projected actual versus what your projected budget. And if we got to find $1.5 million worth of savings somewhere, let's figure out where it needs to come from.
And so obviously this personnel category is made up of several line items, including, so when I'm looking at what we plan to spend in 27, it includes employer paid retirement, the health insurance rate. So that is, we're adding 8% to that for the fiscal year 27 because we anticipate rate changes again. We've also added, again, all positions being budgeted in that 41. Yeah, so I may come in at 39 million for personnel total, but if I really evaluate everything that we anticipate spending in 27, it's 45 million. And I've made a few adjustments to that, but that's still pretty much what that line is going to end up being. And so does that help you get there? I mean, I could walk through each individual line item with you.
Well, we can go through it sometime on a call if you want to, Mike. There's no reason for us to get that in depth now. I'm just, I understand looking at your previous budget and comparing it to what passed the legislature versus what you asked, but I'm more interested in comparing those numbers line by line as far as projected actuals and what got budgeted to see, if we actually have a resource problem out there or not.
Okay, yeah. Probably by the CERS meeting, I'll have a more accurate detail or accurate amount of where I land. Like I said, I think it's 1.5 million. And happy to maybe have some more commentary on what you're asking for at that meeting.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I'm just, I really like to know where that additional 5 million versus what we're actually going to spend is going to be going.
Okay.
Any other questions about the current 27 administrative budget? All right, thank you, Mike. Appreciate your time and efforts.
No problem.
Right, next is the 27 investment budget. So, Mr. Willer, are you ready to walk us through that?
I am. Good afternoon, and already anticipating Mr. Cheatham's questions. I can say we're probably going to I can present this better going forward because I agree with you. Not just budget to budget, but budget to actual makes a lot of sense. So probably have to jump between page 22 and 26 to get a handle on that, but I can give you a high level kind of just focused here. So the total amount budgeted for fiscal 2027 is 10.8 million. Which is a reduction of 1 million or 8% from the amount budgeted for fiscal 2026. And the largest decrease in the 2027 budget is in the legal and auditing services category, and specifically for legal services, with a reduction of 1.6 million or 28%. And this was driven in consultation with Michael and his group by settlements having been reached or expected to be reached in a number of cases, so a significant reduction in our legal cost. He did want me to note that this is always a difficult category to budget as we see the volatility, and depending on actions in the remaining open cases, we could see a fairly significant increase in the overall legal expenses, but this is at this point in time kind of our best guess scenario. Within the consulting services category, we modestly increased the amount budgeted for the general consulting fees. And that really is simply to account for the expected increase. They have a CPI escalator in the contract. As we all know, inflation has been above zero, so we expect that to increase modestly going into next year. We also maintained, as you might note, a line item for a new private markets consultant. That's going to be part of the larger review of our overall consulting services, including what we would anticipate would be an RFP for general consulting services in the second half of the year. In that contractual services category, we increased the budgeted amount by 600,000 or 16%. As you may note, that was primarily driven by the increase in the amount budgeted for our custodial services. And as we'll see in the investment budget review on page 26, as I mentioned, this line item has been running above the amount budgeted for fiscal 2026, primarily as a result of increased market values, increased transactions, and account activity at BNY. We know this is a category, it's a high nail, it receives a lot of focus, and we have a number of projects that are going to touch on different providers in this category in the next fiscal year, including an RFP for custodial services, as well as a full review of our systems and analytical platforms. I know that was touched out in the last Finance Committee meeting, and we did have a follow-up call on that. I would also note within this contractual services category, S&P Global Index Services was replaced with index services provided by Russell, so that's gone to zero. You may also note that the ISS, there's a $40,000 increase. ISS provides proxy voting as well as securities litigation monitoring and filing services for the systems. And we've seen a modest increase in fees based on the number of proxies that are being voted on behalf of the systems. But the larger increase was due to the increase in scope of securities litigation filing that ISS will be performing. ISS is now responsible for monitoring and filing both U.S. and non-U.S. securities litigation claims to the systems. So we're happy to report that we have full coverage across all of our investments, both U.S. and non-U.S. going forward. I'll pause there for questions on that fiscal budget, and we can kind of unfortunately have to reference back here. You can see the increases in the budget amounts or the changes in the budget amounts with what we'll see on page 26. And so this is fiscal year 2026 budget. And through the first 3 quarters of the year, we spent $5 million or 42% of the amount budgeted. So, you know, always great to be below budget. That was obviously largely driven by legal and auditing services category, with only 6% or $300,000 of the amount budgeted for the year through the first 3 quarters. Consulting services were in line with 63%, so we feel good about the amount budgeted. Again, obviously there is a line item there for a new private markets consultant that we will not engage in fiscal 2026. In that contractual services category, 87% of the budget has been spent. As previously noted, custodial fees have been running higher than the budget based on overall market values, account numbers, and transactions. So that was what really led to the increase in the amount budgeted for next fiscal year. So I would also note that Slovis is billed annually. The full amount has already been paid for the year. And you also may notice that an outlier to me is that the variability in the expenses for Giant Vivera, which is the firm that provides legally required tax and accounting services for investments in our international public equity portfolios in India. Unfortunately, the timing for these are difficult to estimate, and we often receive invoices for multiple periods, multiple years simultaneously. So we'll go a year or 2 without receiving any invoices, and then we'll receive multiple years invoices at the same time. So unfortunately, there's a little variability, as you'll see in this fiscal year. We paid substantially more than we were budgeted, but averaged out over the years, you know, over 3 years, we essentially paid 3 years worth of fees in one fee, but we didn't pay the last prior 2 fiscal years. I'll pause there for questions. That's both kind of apologies, ran through both the fiscal year 27 budget as well as 26 budget. So happy to answer any questions.
Steve, you know where at least 1 or 2 of my questions are going to come. We've had discussions previously with regard to Allborn and Slovis.
Yes.
Is under the understanding that at least one of those you were looking at getting rid of. Where does that?
That would be the so Slovis we're doing, and Ian's actually been spearheading that project since he's come on, and that's a full review of kind of both our services. As you know, they provide a couple of things for us. They do the RMS, which is our depository for investment contracts and investment related documentation, as well as they have an analytics platform that we utilize. And so we are in the process of a full review. And I think in fiscal 27, we'll come back with a recommendation for the investment committee and the board as far as which direction we want to go. Yeah, I think it's probably a little too early. We've looked at a couple of different service providers, you know, probably scaling back some of the services and hopefully some of the costs that are associated with that.
Okay, and Allborn?
Allborn, you know, that's a private markets consultant. As I mentioned, we've got another line item there for potentially, you know, that's asset class specific consulting, and that's that, you know, the spoken hub kind of approach to investment consultants. And I think we'll wrap that into a broader review. We've talked about it in the past. I think it's time we finally, you know, kind of do that full review, both of a general consultant. What services do we want the general consultant to perform? What are we willing to pay for those? What's available in the marketplace? And then, you know, which, if any, specialized asset consultants we need, given, you know, where we're looking in market, where our asset allocations are, where we have needs for the portfolio. So whether or not, you know, I think as a staff, we're very happy with the services that Allborn provides from the private market consultants. I think we rely on them for sourcing new investments as well as ongoing diligence of existing investment managers. But I think that'll be part of the full review.
Well, I would suggest, as you well know, hiring an investment consultant is something that is specifically legislated to each both K and C individually. I think we need to have a pretty in-depth conversation about some of that within the investment committee. I don't see personally a reason. You indicated Allborn's about sourcing. What investments have they sourced for us?
So they have done operation, they do ODD and IDD. So we have access, our contract with Alborn is access to their proprietary data research database, including an investment due diligence and operational due diligence. So we've reviewed a number of the recent alternative outside of public market investments that they've provided research on.
Well, again, like I said, I would have a conversation with Dr. Hackberg about getting that discussion going in the investment committee before you get too far down the road on what we want to pay for and what we don't want to pay for.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of duplication. I'm sitting here looking just at what you've got in front of me right now. You've got Alborn at $270,000. You got Slovis at it. Gone from $265,000 to $320,000. And I don't see, I mean, I certainly understand your due diligence portion. I fully want you to have the ability to do all the due diligence that you need to do. But I question if we need to be spending that kind of money in order to do that.
I appreciate that, and I think, as you mentioned, that'll certainly be a robust discussion in the investment committees.
Okay.
Any other additional questions? If not, I'll briefly touch on page 29, please, Sherry. Thank you. So at the total pension level, investment fees and expenses declined by 5.2 million or 4% from the same period in the prior year. It's a 13%, despite a 13% increase in total assets. The largest drivers of this decline were a 10.3 million decrease in performance and expenses in the specialty credit asset class, and the 5.7 million decrease in performance fees for private equity asset class. So those are both based upon performance relative to hurdles, as well as on the expense side, typically the cost of lines of credit and the utilization of those lines of credit. These decreases were partially offset by the increase in the total investment management fees for each asset class, which again are largely driven by the increase in market value across all of the asset classes. The largest increase was in the real return asset class, which increased by 4.2 million. And that is as staff has continued to build out portfolios towards their respective asset allocation targets, increasing by a little over 375 million or 27%. I would note specifically, again, as we talk about a lot on those, what's listed here as investment advisory fees or the investment manager fees themselves. Staff continue to actively negotiate fee schedules with our existing external managers. We target an effective fee rate that are in the lowest quartile of the manager universe. I think we've highlighted a couple of times recently that we were able to successfully renegotiate management fees with a public high yield manager, lowering fees by 12% and saving the systems an estimated $500,000 a year in fees. And staff has also successfully renegotiated management fees with 7 of the 14 public equity managers, not to mention the most recent change that's not included in those numbers. Annual fee savings for those renegotiations of approximately $4.6 million, with a weighted average savings of 30.1%. 12 of those managers are now in the cheapest quartile of the manager universe, and 1 sits just outside of the lowest quartile. At the total pension level, on a weighted average basis, the overall investment management fees are approximately 31 basis points on an annualized basis across the entire portfolio. On the combined CRS pension portfolio is in line with this weighted average, with a weighted average fee rate of approximately 31.4 basis points. That obviously changes based on differences in allocations, both at an asset class level as well as an underlying manager mix level. Within all of our asset classes, core fixed income has the lowest weighted average management fee rate of 6.3 basis points, while currently the real estate portfolio has the most expensive weighted average fee rate of approximately 84 basis points.
I'm sorry, you broke up. What was that one? What was the percent on
Real
that?
estate's 84, weighted average of 84 basis points.
It's still
And
pretty good.
core is 6.3 basis points. Happy to answer any questions.
I'll just commend you on this portion for bang for buck at 31 basis points over all those asset classes is certainly worth hanging your hat on.
Appreciate that. The team works hard. It's a lot of leaning on managers, but I think we've gotten some success recently. So I certainly appreciate those comments.
We have anything else for Steve? All right, I think that's the end of our agenda. Does anyone else have anything? Well, thanks everybody for their time and participation today. So we will call the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.